We'll be starting shortly.
Okay, yeah, I just called everyone, so please, could
Okay.
you start? Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
You'll join us.
So
Others will
good
join.
afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever it is you are joining us. Welcome to okay. Welcome to this session this afternoon. We are currently studying the DP600 certification course, also where it's a 7-day program, and we have started out some weeks ago. Today is the third class. So we had started discussing a few topics around Microsoft Fabric in the area of analytics engineering. And we've considered what it takes for us to set up a Lakehouse, or what it takes for us to essentially leverage on a Lakehouse, use the analytic endpoint, SQL analytic endpoints, leverage on the notebook capabilities, right? And essentially use that to do analysis with your data. Then our focus last week was centered also around data warehouse, right? How do we set up a data warehouse within Fabric? How do we also set up a data flow gen tool and leverage on that for importing of data into um, our environment? So we're going to build up on that. I'll be sharing my screen shortly. We'll be building up on that subsequently, and we'll be talking about uh, how we can, what makes up setting up a data warehouse, how we can load data into a data warehouse. We will discuss what it takes for us to build and optimize data warehouse. And then in the practical session, we'll go through the process of importing the data, right, using data flow gen 2 into our data warehouse. We'll look at how we can normalize the flat file and build the data warehouse schema, right, our dimensional tables, our fact tables. So that's going to be our primary focus for this class. Okay, so when you talk about loading of data, into a data warehouse, right, there are fundamental concepts that has to do with data load. We have the ETL, which is referred to as the extract, transform, and load. This is the process whereby you establish connection to the data source, right? You identify and you select the relevant data. You transform your data, put it in shape. You can either clean, you remove unnecessary columns, you format, you deduplicate, right? You combine the data. Those are some of the types of processes or transformations, right, that you can do, right? And then you can then load your data. In this case, if you have separated them into dimensional and fact tables, you can have them loaded inside your data warehouse. We also have post-load optimization. So this is just in case you are working with a huge set of data and you need to, by essence, do some optimization. In fact, at this point, you can decide maybe you were intending to load in 10 tables, and at the end of the day, you realize you only need 5 for your analytic reporting. You can always go back and carry out some performance optimization, because the more data you load into your data model, the more expensive it is, the more it will need to process. So it's best practice to ensure that your models are performance, the data you also have in your database are data that you need. Okay, so let's look at this, how we stage our data. So within your pipeline of building an analytic solution, it's good practice to have a staging area. So this staging area is like a landing zone. So when you extract your data, you transform them, you can load that data into your staging area. Most times that area, right, can be referred to as your silver zone if you are considering this from the perspective of a medallion architecture, right, where you just put everything there. It might not have taken a lot of shape. It might still be as raw data, might still need to combine multiple related tables together to form your dimensional table, as the case may be. So you bring everything into your staging area. Then from there, right, you move them into your core data warehouse. Then at that point, analytics and reports can take over. So just understand that within the concept of your pipeline, analytic pipeline, you have the extraction process, you load your data, keep it in your staging area, and then most importantly, you can load the finished dimension, finished fact tables, right? Process tool. You can load those process data into your data warehouse. Now, there are different types of data loads, right? We have the full or the initial load. We also have the incremental load. So the full load simply means that at any point in time, when data is being ingested into the table, right, it will always truncate. So the flow is you truncate and load the data fresh. Now, take note that this is very expensive. What this means is to require longer time to load, right? Because if you have millions of records or billions of records, you need to push that, takes a bit of time to do that. Then you now need to start loading them one after the other. So if it's not a performance system, you would have issues with this. This can lead to a lot of things. So there are use case scenarios when this is needed, but for the best part, this is not best practice. This is not ideal, especially for transactional data. So no history stored. That's also another challenge because you cannot track changes, you cannot track histories. Right. So at any point that you're purging it, everything goes up and then you're reading up refresh. So best for initial loads or refresh. This typically works if you are loading it for the first time. But the moment you have loaded your data for the first time, the next best thing is to implement an incremental load type system, an incremental load system. And what this typically does is that it will incrementally load the data, right? So it looks at the data that is coming in, what is the difference between that and what is available in the destination? And only that subset of data, right, that is not available in the destination is what is loaded. So in this case, instead of having to process 1 million records, probably the data between yesterday and today is just 100 records. It's easier to load that. So that is faster, right? So it updates faster. With this also, you preserve the timestamp, the history. So because the date at which those data were loaded into the database is reserved, is available in the table, right? Then you are able to go back in time and say, okay, as so date, we loaded X number of data. This was number of rows, these were the types of data that we loaded. So this helps preserve history. Then this is also best for frequent updates. So it's important for us to understand, and this refers to loading of data inside your data warehouse. Okay, so we started conversation around keys last week, and we're building up on that. And this is speaking to the concept around keys. We started out with the primary keys as they serve as unique identities on a table, mostly a dimensional table, as the case may be. Also, transactional table to have a dimensional key, which is a unique reference of a particular record within a table, right? We also have surrogate keys, and this uniquely identifies an instance of a dimensional identity, like, for example, a row. So This in a way also is referred to as a simple integer value, right? In this case, unique item is a unique key, a unique key. In some cases, this is also just referred to as dimensional key, right? Another type of dimensional key is what they call the alternate key. So this identifies an entity in the operational source system. So what this means is that, yes, right, we can use this surrogate key as a unique identity on this table, But take note that this records, right, is coming from a source system. If that source system has its own dimensional key, which in this case looks like this, we can bring that in, and that serves as an alternate key, right? That serves as an alternate key within your data warehouse table. So take note, this is unique to this table, was created uniquely for this table. This is coming from the source system. This is referred to as the surrogate key, and this is referred to as the alternate key. Okay. So how do we create a table with T-SQL? T-SQL means transact SQL. So there are a couple of SQL flavors or variants. We have the P-SQL, we have the T-SQL. So the T-SQL means transact is a flavor synonymous to SQL servers, right? And then you can leverage on the SQL Server Management Studio as an interface for interacting with your data warehouse or with your database. We also have the Microsoft Fabric portal, right? So that's where we'll be doing the demo session. So you see how we can write queries against our data warehouse, as the case may be. And this is a format, right? The script for creating a table. The name of the table, as you can see, it's almost very readable. So we are create table. This is the name of the table, right? Then there's a bracket, and then we define the columns, right, that we have inside the table, right? Now, when we are defining these columns, we are specifying the data type. So every column is required to have a data type. So in this case, the data type for this guy is int, meaning integer, right? Integer. This one now means mvarchar. So n variable characters, right? And the length for that is 100. So when you see a number, right, within a bracket, it is referring to the length of the column, right? So you can see this is also another annotation, right, given to, or characteristics given to this column, and it's called primary key. So it's meaning, just we talked about that in the previous slide. It also means a surrogate key, right? So this is the unique ID on this table that can be used to identify records within this DM product table. Then we also have the category ID, integer, we have the price. So price now is a decimal. That's why we're using decimal. And what this means is that we can have up to 10 whole numbers, 10 whole numbers and 2 decimal places, right? So 10 whole numbers and 2 decimal places. So that's an example of a T-SQL that we can use to build the table. Now, let's understand. I've been talking about dimensional table, right? How it serves as a unique reference and identity to a particular information in a business, for example, product. So if you are building a data warehouse, right, you need to separate your transactional data, also known as fact table, from the dimensional data, right? Now, when you are loading dimensional tables, there is a concept called slow changing dimensions, right? Slow changing dimensions, and there are different types of slow changing dimensions, right? Now, let's look at it. We have up to 6. We have up to 6. There's 0. This never changes. It means that we are not updating any record in that dimensional table. Is always static. Then we have SCD is also known shortcut for SCD, slow SC changing D dimension, SCD. So yes, SCD1. So in this case, SCD1 typically components of type, yeah, or type 1 SCD, right? It simply means you will be overwriting that data altogether without any history. That's what's entailed in the SCD1. In the SCD2, right, we have the append and track changes. So what this means is that the records won't be deleted, rather they would be appended, and then we'll track the changes, right? We also have the type 3 SCD, which is where we add a history column, right? So what this means is that there will be a column for historical information maintained. So as records are being imputed, right, the historical column will be updated accordingly. Then we have the type 4. And in this case, we are adding a new dimension altogether. Right? So from 4, 5, 6, they exist, but they are not very popular. You would find out most use case scenarios fall between 0 to 3, right? Most practical use cases. But for the type 5, we have, it's just like the type 2, but for large changes. And then the 6 is the combination of type 2, type 3. So that's why I said that if you see, mostly every other thing is revolving or is built up around type 0 to type 3. And an example of what you are seeing there, so in a source system, we do select star from the product, right? And then we say where the modified date is greater than this, and that the modified date is less than this. So this gives us a range of records that change. So you can see in this case, right, we are recording the changes on a column called loop dates. We are maintaining the historical changes, right? And if it's inserted successfully, we get a status, right, that is updated as success. And this typically, as I said, for OLAP means online analytic processing. It's for data warehouse concepts typically, right? This is where for every change that happens, right? And this is type 2, right? You are tracking it. So you can see on this column, it was between 2023 10/01 to 2023 10/31. The value was bicycle. But at the moment now, from after this 2023 10/31, right, we updated the column for name, right, to super bicycle. And you can see now that this now becomes the active product because we do not have valid to date is open-ended. And you can see it's active is true. So this is an example of a type 2 SCD. If there are any questions, you can either drop them on the chat or just we'll discuss them after the class. Okay, so this is an example of a type 2 SCD as I was explaining. So in this query, we are checking on select from within products and the source key, right, is active. And then this is like a stop procedure that has been built to update the DIM products. And what we are doing first of all is to check, right, if we have any product, right, that its active column is true, then we update the product. So as you can see, we update the product. So we set the valid key to get it, which is today. And then we also update the is active to false, right? Then this is just we validating that it's picking that unique product and where it's active is true. So this is how we do the updates. Else, right, then it does an insert. So what this is just doing, if it's an existing record, it will carry out these updates. But if it's a new record, it inserts everything accordingly. And then most importantly, for the date, it's going to make it open-ended and then update the active column as true. So this is an example of a store procedure that we can use to implement type 2 SCD. Okay, so this is an example of loading a fact table using an insert statement. So we look up at the surrogate keys in the dimensional table based on the alternate key. So a simple case like get the most recent loaded dimensional instance, maximum incremental surrogate key. We can also use the is current flag, or we can use the start and the end date, right, as the case may be. So this is just an example of trying to load data into the fact table. In this case, this is a transactional table. And there's a lot of checks that's happening here. Right? We're doing a bit of select one. We're selecting the maximum date key from the team table. We are doing same also because we want to pick the most recent record, right? We are doing that also from the team customer. We're doing it from product key, right? Exactly. So we can see all of this selecting, and this is getting from our stage table. Remember, we were discussing the essence of getting data. First of all, it lands in our staging area, so hence the stage sales. So they are fetching data from the sales data, but most importantly, picking all the updated data. And based on that, the information is now inserted into our fact sales data that is sitting inside our data warehouse. Okay, so let's see how we can do data using Fabric pipelines, right? There is the data flow gen tool, which is familiar with us. We briefly looked at that. Those not on that experience today. We see how we can duplicate the data, how we can essentially clean up data. But beyond that, right, there are some activities, some orchestration activities that you can do within pipelines, right? You can copy data, you can set up a schedule, you can define a parameter that can be used for dynamic activities, and then you can also delete data. So all of these are different activities that you can have defined in a Fabric pipeline. So let's see what it takes for us to configure a data assistant, right? So for example, we want to set up a copy data assistant, meaning a simple pipeline that helps us copy data, and then we can schedule at intervals. We choose the source data, we connect to that source data, we choose our data, connect to the data destination, and then we apply our settings, things like what is the type of load? Is it going to be incremental? Is it going to be full load? Is it going to be what's the data type? What is the schedule refresh? Is it once a day? Is it multiple times every hour? Then when you save, you can then run. Then your copy assistant can runs based on the schedule that you have set. So that's how the copy function or the copy data assistant typically works. Okay, so this is an example of a T-SQL script that can be used to copy. So say you do not want to use the copy assistant or UI, and you want to just do it the old T-SQL way. This is an example of how you can carry this out, right? So copy statements, so you can probably have data sitting like in an Azure storage. As you can see, it's referencing a blob storage in Azure, right? So say you have multiple files within that blob storage. This aesthetic is just referring to select everything that has .csv in that blob storage, right? And then setting the file type as CSV, right? This is just an identity, it's a potential identity to see it's shared as a signature. If you have the secret token, put that in. And then this is the field terminator, right? That's it's used by the copy function. And then this serves as the block for the copy. So it's going to copy this information into a table, right? And then if you want to load into a package, this is for a CSV. If you want to load as a package, right, you can copy into this test underscore package file, right, coming, right, referencing the package file sitting in the blob storage. So those are ways you can typically load either a CSV, load either a package, typically into a Lakehouse, then from there convert it into a delta table, insert it into your data warehouse. Okay, so load from other assets, right? So we can combine into one data warehouse data coming from different pieces, right? So you can see here they are creating a table called analysis underscore warehouse DBO right? And it's selecting from a sales warehouse, right? This is the reference table. It's doing an inner join to a lake house, actually, to a table inside a lake house, right? So this is one of the beauty of Fabric, is that you can even combine data sitting in an existing data warehouse, or you can get data from a lake house, right? We built the foundation of what a lake house is in our last class. It's just typically an environment where you can bring in files, convert the files. It's just a principle-based technology where you can have both flat files and tables together in that environment, and you can leverage on either the SQL analytic endpoint using SQL to get query the data, or you can use Python or real stream data set to KQL, right, to analyze the data, as the case would be. So this is what we are seeing happening here, right? So you can either use it to create a table, or you can just insert into a table, right, and combine and build a join from the warehouse with house. Okay, so let's look at how we can load data with the data flow gen 2, so we can ingest and transform. This is what we'll be carrying out practically. And then you can see you connect your data source, you append or replace, you can add destination. And in this case, there are different options. That's one of the beauty of Fabric. There are different options available for your data destination. It can either be a Lakehouse, it can be a warehouse, it can be an Azure SQL database, it can be an Azure Data Explorer using Custo, it can be a Synaptic Analytics, a SQL data warehouse, right? Like just publish, as the case may be. So once you follow these steps, these are the steps that you typically have within Power Query. You connect, you append, replace, or do your transformation, as the case would be. You select your destination, you save and apply. This is just something publishing. So at that point, you have simply set up a data flow, also known as an ETL pipeline, as the case would be. So you extract, you transform, then load it. Okay. So we also have some AI capabilities within Dataflow, right? Which is Copilot, right? So for an instance that typically has a Copilot available within that environment or tenant, you can leverage on Copilot typically to do some of the transformation, to do data extraction, data augmentation. An example is, let's say we have a gender column with content that contains male and female, and we want to transform it into an integer. So say ones and zero. Can easily just write, say, transform the gender column. If male is zero, then if female is one, convert it into integer. Right. So these are some of it, and it will write the script for it, augment it, apply that transformation, then we see the information. All right. So those are one of the advantages of using the Copilot, and it can carry out other transformation. In fact, there are other things like data classification, data cleaning, and so on and so forth. You can accomplish that with Copilot. Okay, so a quick recap, right, on what we've studied so far. We've looked into the different ways of loading data into our data warehouse. We've looked at how to build a data pipeline, right? We've looked at how to load into our data warehouse using T-SQL, and most importantly, how to load and transform data with data agents. So I am open to some questions. If you have any questions so far, I'm just switching. Um, if you have any questions, by all means, you can raise up your hand or just just drop it on the chat and then we'll take it. If not, we are proceeding to the practical session. And if you want to log into, you can either go to app.powerbi.com or you go to Microsoft the Fabric, right? .com, right? Microsoft fabric.microsoft.com, and I can access it. This one is right. So this is the Fabric environment. We are currently working out of our workspace. We have named it the DAISI, that's DP600, right? So all of the different items that we need for this demo will be created within this environment, right? So if you want to follow through, you can check the WhatsApp chat. We dropped a flat file. It's called, so I'm opening the data lake now. Let me switch to the Lakehouse itself. I think I'm inside the. Okay, so I'm opening the Lakehouse itself now. Okay, so if we click on files, right, you can see superstore underscore sales.csv. So this is a file that we loaded, right? This is a file that we loaded. And so one of the things we did last week was to load this data, right? We load this data as a delta table. Remember, as I explained, this is a file, right? The Lakehouse, a file which contains flat files and semi schematic related date tables, right? Which means that we can convert this CSV file into a delta lake table, which is what you can see here. So when I click this now, you are seeing it appears as a table, right? And this icon that you are seeing here, when you see it on a data object, is referred to as delta, right? So this is a delta lake table. If you check the properties also, you see, okay, I think it's on the volume. Okay, so behind the scenes, this data is made up of uh, some settings, some data lake settings, right? That makes this look like a table. Is optimized, is fast. So say you have millions or billions of records, and that technology gives rise for you to be able to query and access and analyze data in a very fast and optimized manner. Right. So that's the reason why these technologies are available and have in Lakehouse and leverage. Okay, so I am just checking out data that we have here. Okay, so for now, just use this integration. Just this. I'll carry out that activity one more time, and then you see exactly what I mean. So we loaded this file. How do you load the file? Carry come here. You can see load, upload file. When you come to get data, you can upload file, right? And this will launch this model. You can select it and upload. So once you upload it, it's kept under your files, right? Under your files. You then click on these three dots, and then you click on load to table, right? Load to table. And in this case, I am loading to a new table. I'm loading to a new table. So I'll be remaining this table as raw because it's a raw file. So this is just the convention I'm using to say that I process the data that I need to process. Excuse me. Right. So I'm going to click on load. Right. But all this checks out. I wanted to use the header for column names. Right. That's the first row. The column names. It's a CSV file. Hence, it's a bit of command. So I'm just going to click on load. So in a few seconds, you will notice it will transform that data from a flat file, from a CSV file into a delta table. Now, this gives us additional capabilities to now interact with that data as a table, either using our SQL analytic endpoints, right, or using um, uh, Python, right? So you can see the different experiences that are available. So you can launch your notebook, leverage on Python, Scala, and so on and so forth to analyze data, or you can use the SQL analytic endpoint, or you can use the Lakehouse endpoint. So yes, we are good. We've successfully loaded our data into our Lakehouse. Now, we want to, the objective ahead of us is that we want to leverage on Data Gen 2 as our um, data engineering tool, to clean up the data, to massage it. And then when we are done, we would essentially um, load all that data into our data warehouse as the case may be. So let's proceed with that. So we are going to head out into workspace. So in our workspace, we are going to create a new item, right? This new item is called the data flow. Okay, so we move to all items, and search for data flow. Okay, so take note, we have data flow Gen 1 and Gen 2. Gen 1 is legacy, it's out, is not involved again. It's not ideal to use. The latest one is the Gen 2, which is what we want to use, and as advised should be used in this case. We can also click on this star to favorite it, so it means under your favorite, it will always appear. So let's go ahead and click on data flow Gen 2. So click on that. So we are going to call this, just call it sales data flow. Okay, so in a few seconds, we will see if you are familiar with Power BI, right, or Excel, Power Query, right, then this instance or this interface might be slightly familiar with, yeah, right. So this is just built off of the same technology, but in this case, it's advanced and enhanced to support the Fabric environment and different capabilities that we have. So you can see this is the home page where you can interact with different types of transformation. You also have the transform tab, you have the add columns, views, and the rest. So you want to load data, right, from a particular source, right? In this case, we'll click on the more so that it launches this interface. Take note, as I said earlier on, that all the artifacts, all the items, everything that we are building is sitting on top of a technology called One Lake, right? So it means if I click on this One Lake catalog, it gives me a very detailed overview of all the different items, right, that I have within my tenant. So in this case, right, we are interested in connecting to under the DAISI location, which is the workspace, our Lakehouse, which is where we have the file stored. So I'm just going to click on that guy, right? So it's going to try and load, and then we would see all the different schemas and objects that we have within the Lakehouse. So you can see Lakehouse has been loaded, all this query assembled as system information, right? But what we intentionally need is this raw underscore superstore underscore series, right? So this is the delta table that we have loaded. So we're just going to click on this guy, and then we're going to, in a few seconds, it's going to load the data. So you can see how data looks like. So we want to load the data for us. Yeah, this is fine. We're going to click on create. So with this now, it's going to create the connection, create the data also inside our data flow gen tool. So this is now the environment that we have that we can use to do some cleanups, right? Some transformations and so on and so forth. So as you can see, we now have this data loaded inside Power Query, also known as data flow gen tool. So let's do a bit of exploration on this data. As we can see, this data looks like it's sales transactional data, right? But there's something that we're also quickly seeing is that it also contains a lot of dimensional information that is unnecessarily repeated across the data. So like manufacturer, the product name, the segments, the cost category, subcategory. Some of these informations can be moved out of this table, right? They can be moved out of this table. We also have the case of zip, city, state, country. This looks like position-based data, right? So it means that we can also look at separating this, and then we now have the quantitative data. So data has to speak with the discounts, the profit, the quantity, the sales, and so on and so forth. Now, there's something I'm seeing here that looks like doesn't look entirely right. Zip zip code typically should not be having a number data type. And why is that? Because for any column that has a whole number or decimal number data type, by default, Power BI will treat it as an aggregation, and it would attempt to build aggregations on that column, but it will suggest that you should be able to submit it. But we all know that zip is not a number, it's a qualitative data, right? So in that case, we need to go ahead and change this data type. So how do you do that? Click on this icon where the number is shown. You can now see a drop down. It's decimal, currency, whole number, and so on and so forth. Because in this case, we want it as a text. So we're going to click on text. So this is going to switch that and update that accordingly. Now, take note, as I added that something happened or something is happening on the left-hand side under this applied step. So one of the beautiful things about data flow, right, Gen 2 is the fact that every step, right, every step is recorded. If you delete, if you add, now, the beauty of that being recorded means that we can reuse it multiple times. So it's easy for us to build a schedule around that process because it is recorded. So even if I bring in 10 records tomorrow, 100 records, 100 million records over the next 10 years, right, it will just be going through that same process, and then nothing is left out. If I need to augment anything, I can go augment. I need to delete, I can delete. Right, so those are one of the beauties of Power Query, as the case may be. Right, so we've looked at this, right? One other ways we can also interact with this data is by switching on the diagram view, right? So we can also leverage on this. You'll be seeing the data as we're applying different steps, one after another. But I'll switch back to the previous view. Now, on the left-hand side, you can see query. So it's called queries, but typically they're just tables, right? Why it's referring to them as queries is just, it's a query written to fetch the data in. So as we add more queries, you can also define more queries. Typically, they are now like tables within Power Query, but as the case may be, right, there are some functions you can carry out. You can carry out functions like duplicates, you can reference. So this is going to be referencing anything that changes in the first table. It always affects the reference. Just duplicate a new copy of that data, right, and can be used. So in this case, right, we have said we want to build a data warehouse. We've understood the concepts of data warehouse where we have our dimensional tables and we have our fact tables, right? That being the case, we want to normalize these records. Our objective is to build, at the end of the day, our calendar table. At the end of the day also is to build our, as you can see, data that has to do with customer, right? Or we can build information, a dimensional table that has to do with products. And when we look at that of product, you can see manufacturer, manufacturer, we have the product name, we have the segment, the category, the subcategory. All these are related together. We now also see the one for region, which can be referred to as location. So we're going to follow through with that one after the other. So I'm going to do something. I'm going to duplicate this. So this to retain its structure. So we duplicated this, and I'm going to rename this as dim underscore right. Dim underscore custom, right? Custom. Cut that stuff. Okay. So that being the case, it means that we want to maintain the dimensional, right? The dimensional record for customers. Okay, so that being the case, I want to retain only this customer column because although I don't have a customer name, customer type, which is fine in this case, but I have a customer column, right, which serve also as the key and also as the description of that customers. So I'll just click on this guy and I'm going to take out every other columns. Remember, dimension is a single entity, right? So I will remove every other column. So click on remove other columns. And you can see in a few seconds, I only have just one column now, right? My customer column. But if you can see, scroll down, right, you will notice that we have lots of records and most of them, in fact, if I sort it, right, if I sort this, you will notice that it is repetitive. That defeats the purpose. So you can see customer 001 is repetitive, right? That defeats the purpose of the dimensional table. So what do I need to do, right? I need to remove duplicates. So every duplicate that I currently have on that column, I'm going to come to remove duplicates and remove it. And then in a few seconds, we can see, so our records have dropped up to 149 distinct customers, right, currently have purchased items in our store data. So this is fine. So we are good with this, and the data type is fine. So let's move on to the next activity. So we're also going to create a duplicate here, and we are going to rename this. So double clicking also here. You just right click and click on rename. Then underscore product. You click on enter. So as I do that, I am going to try and identify where the product related columns. I can identify there's one. So clicking on control button on your control button, if you're on the PC, you can select multiple items. So you can see that this is selected, the green. This one is selected. I'll click on segments, I'll click on category, click on subcategory. So all these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 are repeated columns that we can add together to form our product table. So that being the case, I am just going to come here, right click also, ensuring that the others are still selected and say remove other. So it's going to go ahead. And yeah, you can see we have only those columns. But same thing still applies here. We still have lots and lots and lots and lots of records because we have not handled any, done any transformation on the record basis. Now, one thing we need to do is to remove duplicates across these 5 columns. Right? We need to remove all duplicates across these 5. So let's attempt that, right? You click on this. You can also click on this icon to carry out a table level activity. So if you are using this drop-down menu, it's on this column. But if I'm trying to do this now at this point, it's carrying it across all the columns that we have in that stop. So I can come here, Control A, it selects everything, come to this guy, right? Select all, or I click that works. Or I come to this guy and I just say, let's see, remove duplicates. And as you can see, it has removed all the duplicates. So now, unlike 1,000 records that we typically have in that table that we duplicated, we now have just only 45 records. Only 45 records, right? So the next thing we need to do is let's arrange these columns according to the hierarchy. Remember that product is a hierarchy. There's a manufacturer of the product. There is the category, there's a subcategory, right? There is the segment, there's the product. The product looks like the smallest, right, item, right? So let's drag the product to the extreme end there. So we have, I'm going to try and sort this guy from ascending order, ascending order. Okay, so I can see here, right? So we have category, we have subcategories, right? We have the product, right? And we have the segments. So now, one thing that we need to identify, despite the fact that the product should be the smallest item, right? There are still duplicates existing. There are still duplicates existing. And we can see these duplicates across product. So one other thing that we can do is to actually build like a key, a unique key that combines all of these different columns together so that it's easier for us to always get the unique record. The unique record. So when I'm trying to either filter from the perspective of a consumer, right, I would see everything that has to do with consumer, as a case may be. Or if I'm doing it on the perspective of technology, it will do all the aggregation. And so the next thing we're going to do here is we can leverage on the add column transformation. Add column transformation, right? So we are going to leverage on that. You can see custom column. Click on the custom column, right? So I'm going to call this the products. Product key, right? And in this case, we are going to make use of something called Power Query Formulas or M language. Power Query Formulas or M language. And what we want to simply do is to do some level of concatenation, right? We want to do some level of concatenation. So I want to start with the first hierarchy, which is manufacturer. I will insert that. Now to concatenate, you can make use of ampersand, right? This symbol, right? And then we want to use like a delimiter or dash in between them so that it's cleaner to see what we are combining. So I would put that inside the double quote dash, right? Then I'll apply the ampersand again. So the next one is segment, sat, and the ampersand, there's the dash. So I am going to follow that process on and on. It. And then the product. Okay, so one thing I need to watch out for, if there was an error or so, I will see the squiggly lines, right? But there are no errors here, which is fine. So I can click on OK. Yes, and so as you can see now, we now have like a product key. Okay, so let me correct my, yeah, so you can see I'm currently using, instead of the E, is currently an E. I can easily edit this by using the formula bar here. So I come here, I delete, and I change it to E, right? And I just click on this icon to commit, right? And then you calculate that and then gives me the value. So this is a unique key, right? Or a primary key, the case may be, right? For us to uniquely identify the information that we have in this table. Okay, so let's go back to our source data. We've worked on customer, we've worked on product. Let's quickly look, what do we have left? We have location, right? Now, we have region, we have zip, we have city, we have state, we have country. So this also is an easier hierarchy for us to try and implement. So let's go ahead, let's duplicate, follow that same process. So in this case now, we are renaming this as D_location, right? So with this, let's identify the columns that we need. We need the region, we need the zip, we need the city, we need the state, and we need the country, right? So we are going to take out every other thing that does not speak to these 5 columns. So we'll move other columns. Okay. Another thing we are going to try and do also across the 5 columns, we are going to remove our duplicates. Okay, so you can see now we now have 20 records left. We have 20 records left, which is nice. So the first hierarchy, obviously, as you can see, is the country. So all of different regions, as it were, right, are situated inside the country, United States. So I'm just going to sort this in an ascending order so that I can easily see how this is set up. So after region, what do we think is next? I believe is the state. So we drag the state immediately after the region, have the city, after the state, finally we have the zip. So we can see this information, and this is very clear. So we can see that the zip for Chicago is 6601, and it's in Illinois, in the United States Central. Massachusetts, Boston, this is the zip code. It's located in the eastern part of the United States. So that's it. We've done that cleaning, right? We've done that cleaning. Now we need to work on the fact table, fact transactional sales table, right? Because this is still a flat bar. We can't use this as it is. We still need to do some cleanup for us to be able to establish relationship between the keys, right? Between the dimensional tables, as the case may be. Right. So we have here, we have our customer, we have here, we have our product key. Let me change this to select, right? So we have the product key under the location. In this case now, this is the smallest unit, right? Zip, this is the most unique record. So we can use this zip as our primary key, right? Because this is the smallest unit, this in unique occurrence of every record that we have here, right? Because this, so that's the primary key. So I'm going to right click here and create a duplicate for this. I'm going to rename this as fact underscore sales, right? Okay, so that being the case, we're going to do a few things, right? Let's evaluate. So order ID is unique, right? Which is what we require, because this is the unique, in this case now, the primary key, right, for this record. So typically we should have another ID, one order ID per record, right? So we have the order date. So this was the date when the order was placed. Ship date, this was the date that the product was shipped. We have customer. So in this case, we'll still use this customer as the foreign key. So within the customer table, we have set up our key, right, our column for customer. For us to be able to link that data to this, we need to retain this column. So this will serve as the foreign key for customer, right? And manufacturing, product name, segment, category. This, if you can remember, we had to create like a surrogate key, essentially combining all these 5 columns together, right? So one of the easiest way I can get this done is typically just say, let me go back and locate this guy. Let me look at this column. So based on the last added column that was created, what was the formula that we used? So it was manufacturing first, segment, category, subcategory. I can easily just copy this. I can easily copy this, right? And then let's get back into our fact series, right? We now want to create the foreign key, right? Which is based off of the same logic that we have within the product table. So what are we going to do? We are going to add a new column, custom column. So I'm going to paste this here, and I'm going to call this products key. Okay, so checking, this is just because I understand that all the columns are the same. So you need to watch out if you get any error or any squiggly lines, the meaning is unmatching. So we expect this to match, so we click on OK. Okay, interesting. So you can see it has successfully added that product key column. Now, we need to clean up, right, that data, because the essence for this data transformation that we are doing is to ensure that in our transactional data, we do not have unnecessary columns. We've created the key. With that, we do not need this data any longer. So all these 5 columns that we leveraged on, we can as well go ahead and remove them. All right, we can delete them from these columns, right? That would not essentially remove the primary key that we've created, because this is a step we are carrying after, right? We have defined that primary key. So I'm going to go ahead and click on remove columns. So this case, we're actually removing those columns that we selected, right? Okay. So we have also established that for location, our zip, right, is also our primary key in this case. So it means that we are good enough to stick with the zip, and we can do away with the column region, the column city, the column state, and the column country. So I'm going to right click on those 4 selected columns, and I'll remove the columns. Okay, so I think we are there, right? So successfully now we have been able to get the relationship that we want to establish between our customer and our dream customer, our zip column and that of the location, and then most importantly, the one for the product has been added also. So we are almost good to go. One other thing that is required is for us to create like a date table. So you can do this either within Power Query, as the case may be, or you can do that also within the data model using DAX. But in this case, we are going to leverage on using the Power Query approach. So we would see how we are able to do that. So I'm just going to duplicate this column one more time, and I'm going to say duplicate. So in this case, I'll rename this as dim underscore date, right? Dim underscore date. Okay. So for now, I am going to leverage on the order dates, right? I'm going to leverage on the order dates as the dates that would be used, right? So I'll click on that, and I'll remove all the other columns. Remove all the other columns. Okay. So there are some transformations that you can use. So it's also important that we ensure that those columns have the correct data type. Yes. So we must be very emphatic about that on our fact tables, because we need to connect this to a date dimension. So we need to change this to date, because it's a date doesn't contain time. So we apply that change. We need to also change this also to a proper data type. So that has been updated accordingly. I'm going to do same in this case. I'm going to convert this to dates. Okay, so the moment this become a date column, right? We can easily go to the transform, right? Or we can go to the add column, right? And you would notice there are some date functions, right, available here. So things like year, things like months, right, things like quarter, we can add them as additional columns that we can leverage on. So we're just going to try and do that. So I'll add here. So it's going to add a column for year, extracting it from this guy, extracting it from this column, right? I'm also going to click on this guy. I'm going to say, okay, for months, I need the months and the month's name. Okay, so you can see that month is displaying the month's number. So if I need the month's name, I'll need to come here under month and click on name of month. All right. So if I want to sort this month name by the month number, it's easy for me to do that, so that it's not doing it in alphabetical order. So I click on this. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to add on quarter of the year. All right. So we can see how that looks like. Okay. So we can have that there. You can also go ahead and say week. So week of let's just use week of the month. Right. Let's do week of the month. Okay. Then we can go ahead and then add day. So we have the name of day, right? And then we can also have the day of the week, right? So this will give us the number. Also, we'll be able to use that to sort. So you can see a Monday or a Sunday will be 0, a Monday will be 1, and so on and so forth, right? So it can sort that accordingly. So we are done with the transformations. Yes, please.
Is it okay to get one of us to share the screen so you can direct us on what to do? Because I think you're too fast. Yeah.
Oh,
So at least,
okay.
yeah, if you can share the screen and you tell us what to do, and I think that
we can plan that. We can plan that against the next class. I think that's a good suggestion. We can plan that against the next class. So we just need to make it interactive. That's actually the usual way I do the training, because we are not getting enough response. So maybe we can plan to make the class slightly interactive next class, so that somebody will share, will just guide them.
Exactly. Yeah, that'll be better. So that at least it was funny, because you were just going on and on, and yeah, quite fast.
That's
okay. Thank you.
Okay. So we are done with all the major transformations that we want to do. One thing I want to do extra is I don't want to load this raw data, because I just need this dimensional data and fact table. So how do we get to do that? We can just come here under this, and then we click. Once we disable enable staging, we will not load that data. So I'm just going to click on this guy, so you can see it's currently grayed out. It's like it's italicized, right? So this data will not be part of the data that should be loaded. So we are done. Now we need to choose a destination. Where do we want to send this data in? We want to send it into our data warehouse, right? We have successfully created a data warehouse in the past. So let's click on this more, and this loads the experience for choosing destination. I'm going to click on One Lake so that I can locate the warehouse that I have created before, right? The warehouse I've created before. So I'll click on Sales Warehouse. Yes, so let's give it a few seconds for the sales warehouse to load, right? And then, yes, so we now are seeing the different schemas that we have within the sales warehouse. I'm going to make use of the DBO schema, which is the database object schema. And okay, so one thing I'm also going to try and do is I'll go back. So you can see it's showing the default column that I selected. I do not want that, so I'm just going to cancel this and try and do this one more time. I don't want it to load this data. I want it to actually load all of this data. So I am selecting all of them. I'll click on Dim Customer. With the Shift keys pressed, I am selecting the other ones, right? So I've selected those 5 tables, 4-dimensional table and 1 fact table. So I'm going to click on the destination. As you can see, the data destination is below here. I click on the plus sign. So you can see the plus sign is here. Then we click on more. So once the more is selected, it knows this interface. Then I click on One Lake Catalog. So to display everything within One Lake. So we have within our workspace the sales data warehouse that we want to leverage on. So I'm just going to click on this guy, and it's going to do. Okay. So we are going to create these tables one after the other, as you can see. So it's picking the first one. In this case, so we're adding this into our deep customer. So it's asking what's the name of the table, right? Yeah. So customer, right? Yeah, deep customer. So I'm going to click on next. So this is where we get to choose the settings. Choose the settings as the case may be, right? So I would in this case, it's asking, do we want to the update method? Do we want it appended or replaced? Right? In this case, because it's a new one, right, we would just do replace. In terms of the schema option to publish, we want it as dynamic fixed schema is preferred, right? And then we can see, so there's one column that table. We click on this, save the settings. Okay. So we have done that. Let me go ahead and choose on this guy. So we can see the settings that we did was for this particular query. We need to run same thing through for the other queries so that it will run simultaneously. So I'm just going to run through that very quickly. So I'll click on this guy. I click on more. Luckily, under the scroll down, there's also this guy available here. So I'll just click on Sales Warehouse. It's going to load. So what I will do is just to have that so the info job is under what DBO schema, right? The input of this point, so click next. Yes, next. Okay, so how we know that that's fine is we can come in and see that it's now been mapped to the warehouse. Under the location, we do that. Click on this. Okay, inside our DBO schema, team location, 6 Then under fact sales, we have also putting this inside our sales warehouse. Inside our DBO schema, click next, and then we save this. And then last, but please do the same thing in this case. Okay, select our schema, and then this is up. So let's save this. So okay, so as you can see, we've successfully set up all the destinations for all the queries or tables that we want to load. So one thing we are going to do now is to save and run. So we are going to save and run this, and we expect the data flow to kick up, apply all of these transformations, run through the, and then put all this information inside our data warehouse. Okay, so let's click save, run, and close. So let's close out of this and let's go into the data warehouse experience. Okay, so you can see we are now inside the data warehouse experience, right? Okay, so inside the data lake, I mean, so let's head over to the workspace. So you can see currently, let's give it a few seconds. You can see our sales data flow is currently rolling, right? So it is running that activity, and in a few, so let's look at recent runs. Okay, so we can see that's currently in progress. It's triggering that workflow, it's processing it. So when it is done, it will give us a feedback and a checkbox that indicates that yes, the refresh or the activity typically has been concluded successfully. We also have the ability to schedule, as you can see, under that data flow. I see the option where I can schedule, so you can add an email or multiple emails can come here. You can set up a schedule. So if you want it repeated every minute, every hour, weekly, monthly, you can set up the interval, the start time, the end time, time zone, and if there are other parameters, parameterized workflow, you can always add it here and add the parameters that you want it to use over time. Okay, so that's about how you set up a schedule on a data flow to item. Okay, so it's still running. In the meantime, let's go into our sales. Open this to the new tab. Let's Okay, so let's look at the data warehouse, right? So we have a few minutes, we'll soon round up. We have done the major parts of the data load, the data transformation, ensuring we have keys set up. So at this point, by the time it hits our data warehouse, we should have a data that has been cleaned up. So remember, we use the DBO schema. So we're expecting to see all of that data inside our data warehouse now. So it's processing incrementally, so it has successfully loaded our fact sales table. It has loaded our team products, so it's loading them one after the other. So we'll give it a bit of time as it's loading. So as you can see here, this is the fact sales table. We have the order column, we have date type. So this is just in terms of the metadata. But for data, you can see all the different columns and informations that we have. Added. Okay, so it's still processing the other ones. The same thing also applies for the product, right? So what we have successfully seen over the last 30 minutes plus now, or 40 minutes about, so is the process of using Gen 2 to get our data, transform our data, applied several cleaning processes. In this case now, we made use, if somebody's asking you, okay, so what type of SCD do we utilize in this case, right? Because of our time, we couldn't go into some other very complex SCD types. We're using SCD0, which is just we reload the whole thing. So when it comes, it will reload that whole data. So if we have more production use case scenarios, we can then begin to consider the type 1, type 2, type 3 as the case can be, right? Depending on the scope that we have. Okay, and with these two also, I can easily use SQL queries, right? So we're within the data warehouse experience. So as you can see, this is me running the top 100 rows within this table, and then you can see the results, right? So this, if you want to also do some form of aggregation, so say we're just going to look at the, so let's do this. So the sum, right, as total discount, right? And then so you see the aggregated values of right total profits, and then the sum of the quantity total quantity. And then finally, the sum of our profit margin, right? Okay, so if we run this, we'll see quantitative values across the different. So you can see the total discount was $120. Total profit was this. Total quantity was this 5,600, and the margin with process, right? So this brings us to the end of the demo session for today. I'm open to questions. So let's get prepared for our subsequent class to make this slightly very practical. We will have a representative who will share his screen, and then we'll just guide through accordingly so that if there are questions or things that is not clear, we'll pick up from it. Okay. Thank you everyone for attention. We are open to questions at this point.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Paul. Do we have any questions? Any questions from anybody? Yeah, I see emojis from Joan. Clapping. Okay, can I share my screen because I was trying to go through. Yeah.
Yes, by all means, please share your screen. Let's quickly look at it.
Yes. Yeah, if you can guide me through some of the steps, maybe. Let's see where I stopped. Okay. Okay. I don't know if it was. Okay, this is what I have. Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see your screen.
Okay. Yeah. So I brought in the raw data. Yeah. brought in this. Okay. So, what was the next step?
Okay, so I think this data is slightly different from data we are using. Scroll to the right.
So it's different from. Okay, I think this is not one of the data you gave us. I thought this was the data.
Okay, I think it's probably click on the data. Click on that data file folder. I mean that data folder.
Okay, this one.
Yeah.
Okay. This one.
Okay. I think it's still loading. I'm trying to see. Okay. Yeah. So okay. So it's slightly different. So this one now, this is like a sales line, transactional data for us to. So I think this has even been splitted. It's been normalized. So it might be difficult for us to use this as to explain. But if we can have this loaded, the other one, then it's easier to guide through. But typically with this one now already, you have your sales order number, which is the primary key typically. You have the sales, click on the raw sales. Let's use that since that is a bit more formatted. Click on the raw sales. Okay, so you have the order number, you have the order line number, right? Yeah, so because this now is serving as there's a sales order and sales line, right? It's also one of the best practices when you are working with large sales data, where you put the header and the line in two different tables. Then if you need to use them, you will join them together. So in this case now, this serves as the sales order table. Then there's the sales order line table, right? Then you now have your order dates, you have your customer name, you have your email address. So in this case now, you can probably put the customer name and the customer email address together separately. That's serve as your customer table. Then for your item, you have that as the product. You can separate that separately. Scroll to the right, then you now have your quantitative data. So if you are to use this data now, the way you can typically have this separated is you have your transactional data, you have your product item table, and then you have your customer table, right? So if you follow the same approach that I use, you should be able to get that created into those tables. So customer table, product table, and then your fact sales order table.
Okay, but this is the fact table. This is a fact table.
So
yeah?
yes, it's a fact table, but in the scenario that we're trying to paint, I mean, within the context of what we are learning, we are referring to it as the denormalized table that we want to normalize, right? So that normalization process is just saying that we properly separate it into dimensions and facts. So this on its own right is a fact table. There might be existing dimensional table. But say for whatever reason, they have combined all the dimensional tables, all the fact tables, they've brought everything together, which was in the case of what we worked with, where everything was there from product to whatever, right? They were there. So we now had to manually go through that process of separating it because we want to ultimately build a semantic model. If semantic model does not sound very clear now, don't worry, in the course of the class, we would explain more on that. It's just for us to be able to build a proper data set that we can use for reporting. And then it is optimized. So when we are looking at best practices, right, for analytics, right, as a fabric engineer, right, or a fabric analytic engineer, you need to understand how to build star schemas, how to build semantic models. And it requires you, ensuring you have your defined dimensions, your facts, and your facts tables, and then you create your relationships across board.
Okay. Okay. Now, okay, can you guide me on how to get one of the dimension table, like customer? So what's the steps again?
Okay, so in that case, we would head back into our workspace. We'll go and create, so you can click on DP600, that DP600 on the left-hand side, the icon for your workspace. So let's head back into the workspace exactly. Then we okay, it's fine. I can see the lakehouse now. So let's even let's create a warehouse first. So you might need to create a warehouse first because that's going to be the destination. So click on new item. Can you see new item here on the top? Okay. So you can easily search under the all items. You can search for, okay, you've selected it, that's fine.
New
So
warehouse.
yes, sales warehouse.
Okay.
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 Okay. So now this is the warehouse experience. This is fine. So we will come back to this. Let's head over back into or we can even just use this new data flow gen 2, right? Just click on new data flow gen 2. So just click on that, and that will launch. You can see in the center of the screen, new data flow gen 2. So we click on that. Yeah, so let's sales data flow. Okay. So once this is created, it will launch.
Okay.
Okay, so we are now going to import our data. We'll go and pick the data that we already have in our Lakehouse. Remember that we've uploaded it is there. We are using that as our landing area. So you click on get data. You can expand. Can you see this icon that is facing, this arrow facing down on the ribbon, right? Top right hand corner.
Get it up from another side.
No, no,
This
no.
one?
This on top, on the ribbon. On the ribbon, you can see an icon that is facing downwards. Facing downwards. So where your cursor is, if you just go straight to the last icon, it's facing down. Okay, hey. Yeah, yeah, yeah. You can just use more. Click on more. More. Okay. So we want to locate our lake house. You can click on one lake catalog. So if you have not loaded the data before into your one lake, you can also just use the approach of upload directly. But because we have the data in our lake house, yeah, so we choose the sales lake house, right? Choose the sales lake house.
The sales, okay, Lakehouse.
Yes, right. Okay, so you can scroll down. Let's see if we have that file. Do we have that file that you loaded?
The
Yeah,
raw
raw
cells.
cells. Exactly. So, okay. So once data loads, you can create. So this establishes connection to a source system and then loads that data into Power Query, also known as Data Flow Gen 2. Now, because you are within the environment of your data warehouse, when you created the Data Flow Gen 2, you can see automatically it has attached your data destination. Before, it was not when I was doing my demo because I did it outside of a data warehouse. So that's just pointing that out so that you understand how that works. So now you have loaded this, right? So if you are to follow the approach that we just went through, it means you will duplicate.
Hello? Yeah.
Can you see what you said, please? The steps you took.
So you do that by right clicking. You right click on the raw cells. You go to the raw cells under power. Yeah, you right click.
Okay, right click. Yeah. Yeah, I've done that.
So you can see duplicate, right?
Duplicate, yes.
Awesome. So it will duplicate that. Let's rename that to dim customer. Dim customers.
Okay. Okay, done.
Okay. So now what do we want? We want only the customer information, right? What are the customer related information from here now?
Yes.
Right. Customer name, any other information?
Email address.
Email, right? Exactly. Email, right? So exactly. So now you've selected both of them. So just right click, your cursor will be on top of the customer name or the email address. Just let your cursor be on top. Has to be on top there. Where you have that customer name.
Sorry, I didn't get that.
You need to move your cursor to the top, exactly right click there. You need to right click there. That's where the drop down options usually will show up. So move your cursor there, then right click. Just right click. There should be a drop down option. Okay. Then remove other columns.
Move other columns. I should do what?
Remove other columns. The third option. Remove other columns. The third option.
Remove other columns. Okay.
Remove other columns. Remember that we only want to keep these two, right? We want to keep these two. We want to remove other columns because these are the two columns that we have inside our customer table that is related to customer tables, right? But there's something that's probably also still wrong with this guy. Can you try and sort your customer name, for example? Just sort it. We are doing this data exploration, right?
Just to sort it in ascending or descending order.
Ascending order.
Okay.
So can you see something that we can quickly see is happening here? Right? There are duplicates. Because we are getting this data from the transactional data, meaning there were several times and Aaron Adams bought items, right? And we recorded that information. But this is a dimensional table. We don't need duplicates, right? So what we need to do is to remove all the duplicates, right? So how do we carry that out? If it were just one column, you can right click on the column header, right, and remove duplicates. But in this case, we have two columns. So you can go to, can you see that icon where there's a table? There's a table on top right, beside
Top
customer
right
name,
hand.
customer name. Can you see customer name, right?
Top right hand corner.
Top left. You can see the customer name within the table view. You can see customer
Or
name.
within the table.
Yes, customer name. Can you see that customer name, right?
The customer name, yes.
Yes, you can see it. So move that icon, that table icon that is on the column for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That icon on top of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So right click on that guy.
Okay.
So you can now see remove duplicates. So we are going to remove duplicates here. All right.
Okay.
So lo
Yeah.
and behold, we can see that we now have only unique records. Only unique records. The email too is unique. So it will be advisable in this case to use the email because there are no spaces in between as your reference or your primary key, right? So we have, in a way, just scroll down, we have, in a way, set up our customer dimensional table, as the case may be. So let's go on and see what other column we can extract. So if you go back to the raw sales, we now have like a product, right? We have like an item column. So we can refer this to as a product column, even though there's just only one column for it. So let's go take this duplicate. Remember, we need to duplicate first so that we don't lose this. This is our reference table. So click on the raw underscore sales, right click on the drop down, and then duplicates. So you can name that as a product.
Okay, really into products.
Yeah.
Dimension product. Fact product. Okay.
So the item will be product. Item
Yes.
as a product.
So you click on that and remove every other one. Okay. So we clean it up now.
The duplicates.
Mm-hmm.
So remove
So
duplicates.
Fantastic. Okay. Interesting. So one thing we can do to make this also, in case there are spaces somewhere at the back, right? But we won't go into that. So you can easily just separate by the different delimiters, by spaces, by this, and replace all the space, right, with a dash and things like that. So those are also other additional ways you can do that. So replace values. So you can replace the value of this. But I'm just stating that we can move on. We can move on for now. We can move on for now, right? So let's go to the raw sales now. Okay, so I think give or take we are good. So let's duplicate again and now work on the fact sales.
Okay. And work on the what?
So we want to work on the transactional data, the fact sales. So we rename it as sales, right? So they call sales order table. No, sales. You
So
can just call
sales,
it facts then.
Facts.
You can just call it
okay,
fact
facts.
underscore sales, yeah.
Okay.
Which is that.
Facts.
So why did we name the others dimension tables?
Yeah, it's just for easy identification. If it is something that it's best practice so
Just
that
like
people
you
can easily
did.
identify which is which, right?
Yes.
So it's just so that when somebody, because if you can give me a descriptive name, it reduces the stress I have to do when I'm building a report. But that I have to now first check if this is a transactional data, is a fact table, right? That also can be a bit more stressful. And then we're also in the age and in the era of AI where no, hold on here in this case. So the way we're going to handle
Okay.
this, right, is so it's going to be transactional. We need all these records that you have highlighted, these columns that are required because it's transactional record. But there's something that we need to take care of in this case. For customer name, for customer table, we made use of 2 columns. We don't need the name here because we can use the email address as the primary key. So I think the only thing we can take out of this table is the customer name because it's repetitive. It's already existing in the dimensional column, in the dimensional table for customers. I don't know if that is clear. I should repeat myself.
Neil, can you say that again?
Please
Okay.
repeat
So
yourself.
remember now that what we are trying to do, the goal and the objective here is that we are trying to, one, clean up the data, convert it to both fact and dimensional table, fit for our data warehouse or fit for our reporting semantic model, right? That's the number one objective. And we've gone the route of say, let's extract what is distinct. We have done it for customer. We have done it for product. So if I now go into my factors and I'm still seeing something that I have already made provision for in my dimensional table, then it is useless in my fact table because I can easily get that same information in my dimensional table. Hence all these efforts. So if I've gone through the effort of cleaning up, separating, doing X, doing Y, then it's only fair to ensure that I carry out the last part of the cleaning. And so part of the cleaning is that if I go and check this customer name now, it's existing in customer. So there's no need for me to have customer name inside my fact table.
Yeah.
Because it's already existing in my customer table. So it is like
correct.
tautology. It is repetitive.
Yes.
You get my point? Hence the logic why we
Yes.
need to take it. That's why we need to take it out. Because it's just consuming unnecessary space. So now you click on your customer name column and let's delete that.
Okay. So it's better to just remove the ones we don't need.
Yes.
Customer name, email. Okay.
No, email is fine. Email is our primary key. If we remove the email, we will not be able to create a relationship between this fact table and the dimensional table. So still
Okay.
understand that our primary goal is that I will still establish relationship between those tables. So the key, the reference, that thing that is unique
It's the
to both of
email
them
address.
exists and is the email. That's why we are leaving the email address. Same thing with item. We will not be taking item out because it's our key. It's serving as our key. It's also serving as our description. Same as customer. Okay, no, just item, right? So, so yeah, you get the logic. So let's click on the customer name and then delete the customer name.
Okay, remove the customer name and okay. So I need to remove it
Only
because
that.
once I click on this, once I
So
click
just
on
only
item, I don't need item.
Yeah, you don't need item, you don't need email. They need to stay in that table.
Okay, so I need to remove it one by one then because I can't.
No, you only need to remove customer name. You only really need to remove customer name because that's the only one that we've made provision for. All the other ones, the second item, all the other ones are still relevant. They are serving as what we would use to link. So click on remove column and we'll explain now. Click on that
remove column here.
Yes. So if I take out email address, right, then I can't establish any connection between my sales
Yes.
table and my customer table. Same thing, if I remove items, then I've even just render that data useless because I cannot see the items that were bought. I can also now use that column also to collect to my product. You get so
Okay, so these are the
what we
primary
now
keys. They are
you
both the
get it.
primary
So, but
keys.
yeah, exactly. So, but in the context of this table, they are referred to as foreign keys. They are primary keys in the dimensional table. They are referred
Table,
to as
yeah.
foreign keys on this
Foreign
table.
keys, yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
yes, that's the concept of primary and foreign keys.
Foreign
So
keys,
that's
yeah.
it. That's the implication of this. So now, give or take, let's just look through our data types. It looks like our data types are fine. Quantity is whole number. Unit price is decimal, which is fine. Our date column, the date is fine, and so on. So give or take, right? We are good. So just start from customer. Click on customer. Okay, so what I'm validating is this data destination. So you can see that under this data destination is still mapped to that warehouse. So we are good. So check the second one. Check the products. We are good, right?
Yeah.
So check the third one also. Okay.
Still well.
But that first one, we don't need it. That raw sales is not needed any longer. So what can we do to that?
We should take it out.
Delete it.
Delete it.
No, less for now because it's referencing. We can just click on enable. So we can delete actually, but for now, enable staging just in case we need to reference that guy again. We don't need to load it all over. So you can just check that box of enable staging. So it will not load that data into the data warehouse.
Enable staging, yeah.
Yes. So it is the reverse. It is turned on now. So if you click on that, it will not load. Just click on
Okay,
click
so it's a
OK.
toggle key.
Yes, it's a toggle key, exactly. Click OK.
Okay.
Well, Mr.
So you
Paul,
can see that
when you were
automatically.
when you were doing yours, did you do enable staging?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I did. So the primary query I loaded, I didn't load it into the data warehouse. And you can see automatically as you did that, can you see that as you move your destination?
Yeah.
So if you check now, so it means that this is going nowhere, which is fine. We don't want it to be loaded into any of this. Okay.
The data.
So yeah. So give or take now, we are done with our data transformation, our data cleaning, and so on and so forth. What is next is for us to save and run. So it will run the data flow pipeline, and we expect it to load the data inside our data warehouse. So what do we do next? We click on that icon that first icon that looks like the save button, that purple icon.
Where
in the ribbon.
that from?
In the ribbon.
Top left.
To see.
Yes.
Save.
So click on the drop down menu. Yes. So click on that drop down menu. So click on save, run, and close. Save, run, and close. So it will save it to run it and then to close us out of this guy so that it can take us to our data warehouse.
Okay.
So we're now back to the data warehouse experience. This is where we were before. So for us to validate what has been loaded, we need to expand our schema, right? Type probability it has put it. So can you see schema there? Click on that icon that looks like a greater than, right? Click on that icon, it will expand
That
that
looks
greater
like
than icon in front of schema, front of that schema. Can you see there's an icon in front of the schema?
in front of the schema.
Sorry, at the back of the schema.
Behind schema, the greater than sign.
Yes. So also the one at behind it. So just click on it. DBO. So most default DBO is the database update, is the default schema. Then do the same thing for tables.
The same thing for
Tables.
tables.
Okay. So it's probably still loading. Click on, expand it again. One more time. So you can see. So now it has successfully loaded those 3 tables into your data warehouse. And it's as simple as that.
Okay.
So we have about 32,000 rows, 8 columns, city size, and so on and so on. So I think that ends that practical exercise. I don't know if there are more questions.
Okay, that'll be it for now. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. So please, we would love others to also contribute. So probably for the next few classes that we'll have those who we recommend to share that or volunteer to share their screen so that we go through this practically. I think probably in a slower pace, and then we're able to ask questions and it's more experiential. Okay. Thanks everyone for today's
Yes,
class.
the lab that you gave was very good. Was very helpful too. The previous lab.
Okay.
Was good.
Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So there's also okay. Maybe I'll just drop the link for that one. The lab that you can also follow through for what we did today. I'll drop that also on the chat so that you can also follow that and share.
Okay, that'll be nice. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Oh. Right. Okay, thank you very much. Can we appreciate Mr. Paul, please? Yes, thank you. All right, I hope we're all following and enjoying the class. Yeah, you can still invite your friends. Can you all have a nice weekend and see you next week, same time. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Okay, thanks, Paul.